Good afternoon everyone and welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting of the Wellington Shire for the 6th of February 2024. Members of the public gallery should note that Council records and publishes Council meetings via YouTube to enhance the accessibility of Council meetings to the broader Wellington community. These recordings are also archived and may be published on Council's website for viewing by the public or used for publicity or information purposes. At the appropriate times during the meeting, members of the gallery may address the Council, at which time their image, comments or submissions will be recorded. Members of the public who are not in attendance at the Council meeting but who wish to communicate with the Council via the online web form should lodge their questions or comments early in the meeting to ensure that their submissions can be dealt with at the end of the meeting. Please could gallery visitors, councillors and invited online attendees ensure that mobile phones and other electronic devices are turned off or in silent mode for the duration of the meeting. Wellington Shire Council acknowledges our offices are located on the traditional lands of the Gunai-Kurnai Nation. We pay our deep respects to the elders past, present and future and acknowledge their ongoing cultural and spiritual connections to their land and waters. We have no apologies for this meeting. Do we have any declarations of conflicts of interest? No. Item 3.1, adoption of minutes of the previous Council meeting. Someone to move that, please. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council adopt the minutes and resolutions of the Ordinary Council meeting of the 19th of December 2023.
And second by Councillor Rossetti. Is that motion opposed? If not, that motion is carried. Happy with that, Councillor Wood? Item 4, business arising from previous meetings. There is none. Item 5, acceptance of late or urgent items. There are none. Item 6, notices of motion. There are none. Item 7.1, outstanding petitions. We have the petition for Cobain's feedlots. That's still ongoing. We're still gaining information to go back to the proponents with that petition. And then I have a new petition, receipt of petition 7th Avenue Paradise Beach. Someone to move that, please.
Yes, Mayor, I'm happy to do that. I'd like to move that Council receive the attached petition regarding 7th Avenue Paradise Beach and the petition be referred to the General Manager, Built and Natural Environment for a report to a future Council meeting.
And seconded by Councillor Marr. Is that motion opposed? If not, that motion is carried. Councillor Stevens. Yeah, happy with that? Item 8, invited addresses, presentations and acknowledgements. Do we have any? Councillor Stevens.
I'll go first if you like, Mayor. Thank you very much. So, basically, there are just two people that I'd like to acknowledge this evening who basically who received awards in the Australia Day honours. The first person I'd like to acknowledge who received the Medal of the Order of Australia is Mrs Elizabeth Wynne from Yarram, who has got a long and very devoted record of service to the community, and that was why she received the award for service to the community of Yarram. Just to give a quick thumbnail of some of Elizabeth's work. Elizabeth is currently the Vice President and has been for a number of years of the Yarram Historical Society. She's a life member of the Yarram Agricultural Society. She's been involved with the Yarram Golf Club, a long-serving volunteer for the Yarram of Stedford, and is also still an active volunteer for the Yarram Visitor Information Centre. So that is a wonderful record of service, and something that's not mentioned in the acknowledgement is that she also for many years was involved with Miradong, training the Debs for the Miradong ball, and I think she did that for longer than I know, probably at least 20 years. So congratulations to Elizabeth. I think it was a wonderful honour and well deserved for her to receive an OAM. And the other person that I'd just like to note, Mr Graham Hurrell from Kurrajong, he received an Emergency Service Medal. He had in recognition of long-serving work with Lifesaving Victoria, particularly the Woodside Beach Surf Lifesaving Club. He became involved with the Lifesavers in 1974, and he was very particularly focused on training young people. So congratulations to Graham for his ESM. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Councillor Ripper.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to acknowledge Denise Stothers, a former Stratford local and Avon Shire councillor from 1980 to 1991, received the Order of Australia Medal on Australia Day, and during that period of time, Denise was the Shire President. And it's just too much to go on about what a wonderful person that she was and what she gave to the Stratford community, but the life of community dedication is in the, thank you, Gippsland Times, has documented it with an interview. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ripper. Elizabeth, Graham and Denise are of many that actually received Australia Day awards from different varying reasons for residents of the middle of everywhere, or the Wellington Shire, so we congratulate all of the people that received various different awards, much deserved by everyone. Well done. Is there any other invited addresses, presentations or acknowledgements? No. Item 9, questions on notice. There are none. Item 10, delegates reports. I don't think we have any. Item 11.1, December 2023, Council Performance Report. Someone to move that, please. Councillor Crosley.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council 1 receive and note the December 2023 Council Performance Report as attached, and 2, endorse the CEO's advice that a revised 2023/24 budget is now required.
And seconded by Councillor Stevens. Is that motion opposed? If not, that motion is carried. Councillor Crosley.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a requirement, but it's also that we present these statements, but it's also a way that both the councillors and the council officers and the community to see how we're tracking against our budget. Currently, we have a slight deficit of $750,000, but we've been assured that and confident that by the finance officer that we will probably regain that and have a slight surplus by the end of the financial year. We've had a number of impacts, a bit like the community, that the weather has impacted our bottom line. And certainly if you draw a line over for the last 4 years, that we've had 13 declared weather events that have had both impacted our staff in their time that they have to put in and the stresses and strain of that. The capital works programs gets impacted, delayed and further costs, and our routine maintenance also gets impacted, which increases cost burdens as well. Also, the other thing is because everybody notices that the road in front of their house is degraded or there's something wrong, so the impact of customer demands is quite significant. In January in 2024, there was 541 requests, as opposed to nearly half that in last January. So this weather event has a big impact both on our ability to function in the normal ways, but also a considerable impact on their budget. I think it was reported a $10 million impact over the last 4 years of costs onto the bottom line. There has been some positives in that there's been an increase in our budgeted income on the increase due to increased building activity for new residential development, which is really positive. There's been a rate supplementary increase due to the both the sale of the blocks, but also due to the, I can't think of the word now, evaluation that was done by the Valuer General's department, and also increase in our cash reserves for interest. So there's some ups and downs, and again, one particular item that stood out to me is that there was a $1.2 million over the budget spend due to the wet weather and impact on the Kamani landfill and the leaching out of that needed to be collected and disposed of. So these major events, weather events, have a serious impact on our bottom line and also the amount of energy and time of our staff. So I do congratulate them on their response to the community and their increased burden is noted and their service to the community is thanked. But as I say, we do hope to end the year financial with a slight surplus. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Crossley. Item 12.1, Assembly of Councils Report. Someone to move that, please. Councillor Marr.
I move that Council note and receive the attached Assembly of Councillor records for the period 11th of December 2023 to the 28th of January 2024.
And seconded by Councillor Rossetti. Is that motion opposed? If not, that motion is carried. Happy with that, Councillor
Yep,
Marr?
that's all.
Item 13.1, Crest Widening Program at Nordens Lane in Maffra. Someone to move that, please.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Ripper.
I'd like to move 1. Council adopt the recommendation contained in the attached confidential tender evaluation report of the council meeting agenda for contract 2024056 Nordens Lane reconstruction works, and 2. The information contained in the confidential attachment contract 2024056 Nordens Lane reconstruction works and design confidential under section 3(1) of the Local Government Act 2020 by the General Manager, Built and Natural Environment on 6th of December 2023 because it relates to the following grounds. GII, private commercial information being information provided by a business, commercial or financial undertaking that, if released, would unreasonably expose the business's commercial or financial undertaking to disadvantage. B, designated confidential information under section 3(1) the Local Government Act 2020, except that once this recommendation has been adopted, the name of the successful tenderer can be made public.
And seconded by Councillor Crossley. Is that motion opposed? If not, that motion is carried. Before I go back to Councillor Ripper, I'd like to announce that the successful tender as Bensdale Road Services Proprietary Limited. Congratulations. Councillor Ripper.
Thanks, Mayor. Just the background. The works entail widening and sealing of approximately 1.5 kilometres of Nordens Lane, Maffra, as part of the annual Crest widening program. And there is certainly a crest in this area. It actually goes over a irrigation channel. I've ridden that on my bike quite a few times with vehicles coming. It is a little bit dangerous, but a lot of bike riders do use that to commute from Maffra to do a loop to Stratford back via the rail trail. So, and the local farmers, I know, are looking forward to this work. So the program was introduced to increase the safety of the rural road network by widening the crest sections of narrow sealed roads so that drivers do not have to drive on unsealed shoulders. The section of Nordens Lane that is being widened is also a curved section of the road. A design has been completed and a tender was advertised for those works and has now been evaluated. So thank you very much to Council and to our successful tenderer. I'll look forward to cycling on that area in due course.
Thanks, Councillor Ripper. Item 14.3, Adoption of Draft Wellington Shire Council Library Strategy 2024 to 28.
Yes, if I may, Mayor, that's an officer's report. Just would like to withdraw that from the agenda at this stage. And I spoke to you earlier about this, Mayor. Nothing sinister, councillors, other than Councillor Crossley mentioned some of the challenges we've had responding to some of the floods in the new year, and some of the year one targets in this report already. We're going to be well behind the 8 ball, if I can be really candid, because of the way we've recalibrated some of the resources in the organisation. So we'd just like to pull it back, reset it, but a lot of those year one targets we do need will certainly come to council as part of the budget considerations over the next 2 months. But if I can use a metaphor, Mayor, it's a cake that's not quite cooked properly yet, so I'd just like to pull it back and have another go at it.
Thanks, Mr CEO. Item 15.1, Port Albert floor level controls. Someone to move that, please. Councillor
I'm
Marr.
happy to move that. I move that Council designate the identified urban zoned areas of Port Albert, identified in red in attachment 15.1.2, as being subject to flooding under the Building Regulations 2018, with a finished floor level requirement of not less than 2.9 AHD, and 2, continue to waive the report and consent fee for flooding in the designated flood-prone urban zoned areas of Port Albert.
And second by Councillor Crossley. Is that motion opposed? If not, that motion is carried. Councillor Marr.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. In 2014, the Port Albert Township was excluded by the then Minister of Planning from Amendment C33 that's aim was to update flood controls. This resulted in Council relying upon Building Regulations 2006 and the Policy Assessment of Development in relation to potential sea level rise to manage and control urban infill areas of Port Albert. In October of 2021, the Minister of Planning removed the strategy of planning for sea level rise of 0.2 metres by 2040, with the statewide approved planning scheme amendment VC 171, which modified clause 13.012S of the Wellington planning scheme. The new Victorian planning provisions require planning for sea level rise of not less than 0.8 metres by 2100, allowing for combined effects of tide, storm surges, coastal impacts, erosion and local conditions when assessing risk associated with climate change. It's important to note that this is a mandated change that aims to minimise future risk and brings Port Albert in line with other coastal townships. On the attachment 15.1.2, it identifies the urban zoned area of Port Albert that is now identified as being land subject to inundation and flooding as per Building Regulations of 2018. The building floor levels will be controlled and managed through the building permit process, with the finished floor level requirement of not less than 2.9 metres AHD, which includes the 1 in 100 year flood level of 2.6 metres AHD plus 0.3 metres of freeboard. This ensures that all future development in Port Albert will be above the 1 in 100 year flood level. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marr. Further gallery and online comments. Any online comments, Mr CEO?
Thank you, Mayor. We've got two, so we're off starting the year with a bang. The first one's from Laurel Putland, and her question relates to the Council's fair access policy. And just by way of background, our fair access policy is around addressing barriers for women and men in assessing and using community and sporting infrastructure. So Laurel's question is, and talks about Council gathering data to analyse any barriers that might be in place. Laurel's question is, how is this analysis going to be done to make sure there is no bias against women, keeping in mind the government's women's budget statement of 23-24, which states the majority of data collected and reported in the state government statement relate to sex, not gender. Sex is based on the person's sex characteristics such as their chromosomes, hormones and reproductive organs. Gender is a social and cultural concept. It is about social and cultural differences in identity, expressions, and just, I won't read the full sentence, Mayor, but it just talks about how we understand the difference between the two. It's a very good question. We will respond to Laurel and provide a copy of that to all councillors, Mayor. And the other question is from, just bear with me, I apologise, is from Christine Timmerman, asking for a PDF to be circulated, and I suspect that she may wish to address councillors directly. So the PDF has been, and it might be a good segue, Mayor, into gallery chat. So.
For sure. So Christine is actually here to talk to what she has sent in the council. So Christine, I'll invite you up to use your 3 minutes. Thank you.
And just confirming, Christine, that PDF has been provided to all councillors.
Just one moment. Do we need to turn the lectern on? Yes. Now you're right. We can hear you.
Just notice you haven't got a laptop open, so if you want to have a look, find this and one that has a plug to look at. I've actually got page numbers, so hello, how are you all again? I've actually got page numbers on here, and we're not going to go through everything, we'll just skip pages.
Yep.
So the front page looks lovely, but what I really need to talk to you about is the draft public environment report. So we've got until the 19th of February to make a comment to the federal government about the Gilliandale wind farm. So if you go to page 2, you'll see the opportunity for public comment. It's very strict about what you can say. You can't say, I do or don't like wind farms. It's not at all about that. It's about what the federal government under the EP BC considers to be their responsibility in whether or not they approve this particular development. So the scope and the sequence of what you can comment on is on page 2. Page 3 consists of just basically the front of the draft. It's a 38-page draft. The Gillingdale Wind Farm has been given a copy of it as well, and they have a right to reply as much as any person in the public arena has at this point. It's quite different to what we expected, and we're very pleased with the federal government because Graham and myself put quite extensive environmental reports in, and we can see that they read our homework, because what we wrote has appeared in the guidelines for Gillingdale Wind Farm now. So we're really pleased about that. It's basically, they took our homework and they read it. So if you go on to page 4, I'm just going to go through some of the red stuff because that's really important. So the federal government's decided that the surveys were not up to scratch because a lot of them were quite old. They're not prepared to take things that are over 3 to 5 years old, and these people have been returning stuff out from, you know, who knows when they started. So they've got to resurvey, and they've got to conduct these surveys over 24 months. In fact, they've got to do at least 8 surveys on particular things. They can't just, in the past, they have gone off on days of bad weather, which we have proof of, and done surveys. They actually have to justify how they're doing these surveys now. They also need to include my biolink. So they need to understand, this is the Gillingdale Wind Farm, that the Alberton and Gillingdale State Forests do talk to each other, and our little critters do run between there, and they forage and they breed and do all sorts of things, and that's been recognised in the public environment draft as well. They also, if you look on page 5, see that they listed an awful lot of wandering birds, migratory birds, threatened birds. Some of those birds' status has actually changed, and unfortunately over Christmas, 8 of those birds have now become more vulnerable or endangered. So we are at a critical situation, and that was a change over just the last couple of months. All those birds are listed in the required the draft report at the moment, plus others that are to come along. On page 6, they have also suggested, this is the federal government, that Synergy Wind may, and anything italics is straight from the report, may have to find alternatives to their placement of their wind turbines. They also need to look outside the project area. This is a long-going battle that we've had with, in particular, Adam Gray, that he considers that where you put the turbine is the only place that matters. The federal government considers something very different, because where you put the turbine, they look 5 kilometres in every direction, and that's how they come up with their protected matters. So there's a very different view, and it's the proper view that we should be taking. They are very concerned about the hydrology in the area, and that's the bit I'm actually going to talk on for you guys. They mention, of course, the Ramsar. They also have looked at Graham's work and brought up the acid sulphate soils. And if you look at page 7, I've just got a little picture there of the bird drain. I don't know if you know bird drain, but basically it's about a 3-metre drop between the construction site and where it crosses what's called Telegraph Road, which is basically where it leads into the estuary of the Ramsar wetland. 3 metres is not a really big drop over about 3 kilometres. So it's a very sensitive drain that we've got there. And any construction, and they're going to construct on either side of the drain, in fact they're planning on putting a road right over the top of the drain, increased turbidity, sediment flow, there's a whole lot of issues, and none of that has been addressed in any of their planning, any of their reports. Nothing says that. The federal government's picked that up, and we're really pleased about that. If we keep going, you'll have a look at page 8. This was Christmas. That's Christmas this year, and that's where turbine 1 and 2 are going. So I hope they're going to build them with floaties. One thing we are going to ask the federal government is that they have a special consideration for the powerful owl. It's only a matter of time before it's listed federally. My husband and I go up to Alberton State Forest to try to find them, but then we take our little dogs with us and the dogs bark at everything. So I'm sort of suggesting we don't take our dogs the next time, but because every noise in the bush, they're going mad. So, but I've got the latitude and longitude of every owl that's been recorded there, and we go to those sites and see if we can find them. But we'll be doing that for the next year. The other thing that I have is page 10 and 11, that if any of you feel that you would like to comment on the wind farm construction, here are some ideas. As I said, it's not about whether we like it or not, it's about whether or not we're doing the right thing for the environment here and that the proper reports are done and that the right people make these decisions. So these are some of the things, the next 2 pages, 10 and 11, are just things that are within the scope and the sequence of the report itself that you can make comment on. So I'll just skip through those. And I'd like to introduce you to something very special, and it's called the Swamp Everlasting. Now, we've just found some of this. The last time this was recorded was in the 1980s. This is about a stone's throw away from a couple of turbines. And there's a picture of it, and that's going up the Victorian Biodiversity Atlas as we speak. Graham actually found them, risking his life through the swamp, walking through areas I probably wouldn't have gone in myself. But it can show you that we actually are surveying this area ourselves, and we're actually saying these things are still here, they still existed. This area was surveyed in the 1980s, and there's been very little work done there since. And as I said, there are 35 wild populations of the swamp everlasting in Victoria, and we have one of them, right where the turbines are going. But the thing I really wanted to talk to you today about is blue carbon. It's one of my favourite topics. So this is Bullock Island. Yeah, Bullock? Yep. So I've got a little arrow showing where that photo is taken and where we're standing. If you have a look along that picture along here, consider it to be more sequestering of carbon than redwood forest. If this was a massive redwood forest, we wouldn't even be talking about this wind turbines being built here. All of that area is salt marsh and mangroves. And if you turn on to the next page, you can see the science behind it. This science is changing a lot. Now they're saying between 10 and 100 times more carbon than a forest this area holds. We know it is vitally important that we look after this area. It's very hard to get to. A lot of people don't go there. So one of our problems is people don't know it's there, so they don't know why we're protecting it. And there's a little scientific diagram. You can have a look at how it just captures CO2. So if we really were green, we wouldn't be putting this in harm's way. And if you have a look at page 15, you'll see I've basically put a dot in the middle of turbine 1 and 2's construction site. You can see we're 3.57 kilometres from that estuary. It goes straight down Bird Drain into the 9 Mile Creek. And I've added in some photographs of a turbine. This is over 200 turbines in Oregon. These are Vestas turbines. These are the turbines that Adam Gray is suggesting, that one of the ones they may choose. This is a bad one. I mean, I chose the right one to make this point across. Turbines leak. They leak all sorts of oils. They leak all sorts of things. In fact, they actually closed this wind farm down in its 15th year, for a year. They had to clean it up. And if you look through the next pages, these are actually photos from the farmer whose a lot of these turbines farm was on. Our biggest worry is this could happen in that area and no one will see it until we start seeing dieback. And no one will know because no one is checking on this. The host farmers aren't going to let us in and say, look, can we see if there's an oil leak there? And if you see the very last page, I think that says everything to me, because that's spatter from the bottom of a turbine. And this is not a unique event. If you go and have a look at Tura before they clean them up, they look somewhat the same. Not as bad as these ones. I did choose particularly bad photos to make, but they're real photos. But that's the spatter under a turbine. And if we have that happen into Bird Drain, we're not going to stop it. So that's my big concern. So I hope you enjoyed that.
Thank you, Christine. Is there anyone else in the gallery that wants to address council? You come forward and state your name.
Yes, my name is Graham James. I live in Gilliandale and I'm also involved in objecting to the Alberton or Gilliandale wind project. On next Monday, the state government will be gazetting the Alberton wind farm for public comment, so the council will presumably get the official notification, and they will have to make available to the public the synergy application for appraisal, and normally we would have 30 days to lodge comments on that project. So I believe that's coming on next Monday. The second thing I wanted to mention was that what was the Wind Commissioner, and he's now got a new title, he's the Australian Energy Infrastructure Commissioner, and that's Andrew Dwyer. He's been talking about the cowboy operators that have been pursuing wind turbines and power lines and solar panels. Unfortunately, the industry has established a fairly bad reputation of the way they've been tackling projects. And I think Adam Gray and Synergy Wind have been right up there on top of the list of cowboy operators. And I have printed out some comments which I've given to Andrew. You might like to have a look at. I just think their tactics have not been particularly good. The other thing I've done, which I haven't circulated yet, is I have done some photo montages of what it will look like afterwards, because again, the landscape and visuals that Synergy have done have been particularly aimed at trying to hide what it really will look like and what the impact will be. So I might just give a couple of copies of this to Andrew, but I can email everyone or Andrew with a PDF of these if somebody would like to have a look. So that's basically all I have to say.
Thanks, Graham. Thanks. Is there anyone else in the gallery that'd like to address council? No? In that case, we need to move into closed session.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I was just reading the notes about the cowboy operators. I move the meeting be closed to the public to consider confidential information pursuant to Section 66(2) of the Local Government Act 2020 and defined in Section 3(1) as involving personal information, being information which, if released, would result in the unreasonable disclosure of information about any person or their personal affairs.
And the motion is seconded by Councillor Stephen. All in favour? Motion is carried. Sorry, we have to go into closed session, so I need you to move out, please, so we can just do some confidential. Thank you very much for your presentations.